A 640 horsepower mulcher can erase a mature tree in seconds. A dedicated log carrier can move 40,000 cubic meters of timber across an ocean in one voyage. Between the machine that grinds forests into dust and the artisan turning a slice of willow into a perfect sphere sits the entire industry that decides what a tree becomes. Watch through. The closing scene ties both extremes together.
Hello, my friend. Welcome back to X Machine's channel.
Forest work does not start with a chainsaw and a guy in flannel, not at this scale. A red mulching head bolted onto a 30-ton excavator arm spins at industrial speed, chewing standing trees into ground cover. Yes, the trees just vanish into dust. Then the machine gets bigger and the forest gets quieter. A 640 horsepower tracked mulcher digs 16 inches into the soil, while grinding trees up to 28 inches across, which raises the obvious question. If the mulcher just erases a tree, how does anyone actually get usable wood out of one? A feller buncher answers that question by refusing to treat a tree like one problem. The head clamps the trunk, a saw slices through the base in under a second, and the arm holds the whole tree upright as if it weighs nothing. Then it grabs another. And another. The operator ends up carrying a small bundle before setting it down in a neat pile ready for the next stage. 20 years ago, a crew in this same forest logged 100,000 cubic meters a year by hand. One machine like this now moves 600,000. The flat ground demo is one thing. The real test comes when the slope tilts and the snow gets deep. A three-legged harvester with a self-leveling cab climbs terrain that would tip a regular machine on its side. The operator stays level while the frame twists underneath. Have you ever tried to keep coffee upright in a truck going up a hill? Now do that job in a 20-ton machine holding a running saw at the end of a 30-foot arm. The head processes each trunk right where it falls. Not every forest job needs $500,000 of hydraulics rolling in on a trailer. Some of it needs a machine you can tow behind a pickup, unload with a ramp, and drive through gaps a full harvester will never fit through. The tracked mini forwarder shown here weighs less than a compact car and still hauls stacks of logs at a woodlot's too small or too tight for big equipment. The operator walks behind it, cuts trees with a chainsaw the old-fashioned way, then loads the trunks with a small crane mounted on the machine. Why does this matter? Because a huge share of the world's usable timber sits on private lots under 40 acres, where the big machines never show up. The tree comes down. Now the harder part starts. A log built like a wet telephone pole with no handles, and no one has thought about how to move it yet. The oldest solution to that problem needs nothing but rope, geometry, and one pull. A chain wraps under a heavy log. Both ends anchor above, and a tractor drags one side. The log rolls itself up onto the trailer. Loggers have used this trick for 2 centuries. Then someone bolted a winch onto a truck bed, and the loading problem shrank from an afternoon to about 10 minutes. A 1951 side loader used a cable powered off the engine, a lever, and a hand tool called a cant hook to roll logs one at a time onto stakes. 2 people could load 1,000 board feet of timber if the logs cooperated. The safety gear? Steel-toed boots if you were lucky. The rule on the crew was, in plain words, do not get killed today because you still have work tomorrow. 7 decades later, the winch and the cant hook grew up into something that lifts a full truckload of logs before lunch is over. A modern timber handler weighs around 40 tons and carries a grapple wide enough to swallow an armful of trunks in one bite. The operator sits in a cab that rises hydraulically to give a clear view over the top of the log stack, then swings the boom across the yard and drops the bundle exactly where the mill wants it. The whole cycle takes about a minute. Why does that matter? Because a modern sawmill will not run if logs pile up faster than the yard can sort them. The handler is what keeps the incoming trucks moving.
Every minute a truck sits waiting to unload is a minute the driver is not out getting the next load.
Push the scale up one more notch and the handler starts pulling logs straight out of water. A 200-ton crane on rails swings a grapple down into a floating pond, closes on a bundle of trunks, and lifts them dripping onto a sorting deck. Ponds are used because water supports the log without bruising it and floats debris off the bark. Every cycle moves several tons of timber. The log has come a long way from the stump, but the yard is not the end. It is the doorway to somewhere much bigger. That doorway leads to a portyard the size of a small town, and the forklifts running through it are not the kind anyone rents at the hardware store. Break-bulk log handlers carry 20 tons in a single grab, drive down the yard, and stack timber 4 or 5 layers high with the same finesse a bartender uses on a beer glass. Barges wait at the quay. Cranes lower bundles into the hold. 20 years from now, will these yards still run on diesel and steel cables, or will electric handlers and remote cabins take over? Where do you see this heading?
And here's where the real payoff of the whole chain shows up. A single ship swallowing what 100 trucks brought in. A dedicated log carrier sits at the dock with its hatches open, and a shore crane feeds bundle after bundle into the hold. Each lift weighs several tons. Each hatch fills over hours. Workers on deck guide the swinging load into place with tag lines and hand signals, then strap the top layer down with chain binders once the hold is full. Some ships stack additional logs on the weather deck too, secured by heavy uprights welded to the hull. A fully loaded log carrier can move around 40,000 cubic meters of timber across an ocean in a single voyage. That is a whole forest, cut, sorted, hauled, and now floating. But moving raw trunks across water is expensive per ton, and there is a much smarter way to ship a tree. Pound before it ever leaves the yard. A chainsaw was built to take trees down, not to give them a face. A chainsaw carver decided the tool did not know its own limits. The blade that dropped a 60-foot pine can also sketch a nose, a set of lips, and a row of teeth on a standing chunk of wood. The carver starts with the mouth. 2 cuts define the top lip and the bottom lip, then the sides connect. From there the nose gets blocked in and the eyes follow. Each cut is committed. There is no eraser on a chainsaw. After the main features come the tapers. The bark tip runs at an angle to knock down the hard edges, softening square shapes into a face. Then the details: teeth, forehead lines, a small pineapple design on the chin.
All right, that's your basic tiki face.
The whole rough carving takes about 8 minutes. Why does that speed matter? Because the wood is drying while it is being cut, and every hour of delay changes how the surface behaves. A green log carves smooth, a dry log fights back.
I'm not gonna worry about saying in the back. I'm just kind of showing you guys the basic idea here. Not gonna get too fancy.
Move the same tool up to a taller log, and the difficulty jumps a whole level. A full-sized log turned into a chief with a feathered headdress needs the carver to think in 3 dimensions the whole time. The face here, the headdress wrapping around, the shoulders below. One wrong pass into the nose and the whole piece has to be rescaled. Push the log tall enough, and the carver needs a ladder to reach the top of the sculpture. A full-height tiki gets roughed in with a big saw for the mass, then finished with a smaller saw for the eyes and mouth. 2 chainsaws, 1 piece, and about 40 vertical inches of hand coordination. The chainsaw gets the shape close, but close is where the harder tool takes over. The lathe takes over where the chainsaw gives up. A rough branch clamped into a spinning chuck stops being firewood and starts becoming geometry. A small container, about 4.5 inches tall, hollowed out, with a matching lid. The turner works from outside in. A shaping tool held against the spinning wood peels off ribbons of shaving until the outer profile is right. Then a drill bit bores straight down the middle to remove the bulk of the interior. Then hollowing tools clean the inside walls until they are thin, smooth, and even in thickness all the way down.
The lid is turned separately on a smaller piece, then fitted against the container so the two parts meet with almost no gap. The bark on the outside is left as it was, which is the whole point. A rough branch on the outside, precision work on the inside. Have you ever tried holding a chisel steady against a piece of wood spinning at 2,000 revolutions a minute, aiming for wall thickness within a fraction of an inch? Share how that went for you below. Every misjudged cut goes deeper than expected, and the wood does not offer a second chance on the same spot. Now push that shape up to a wooden ball, big enough to sit on the floor, and the challenge changes completely. Freehand turning a sphere by eye works up to about the size of a grapefruit. Bigger than that, and the tiny errors keep adding up until the ball wobbles. The solution is a mechanical fixture. A cutting tool rides on a curved slide, and the slide guided the tool along a perfect arc while the wood spins on the lathe. The operator advances the tool, the geometry does the rest. Whoa! The fixture holds a bowling ball-sized sphere true within a fraction of a millimeter. The digital display on the machine shows how much material is coming off with each pass. Different steel cutters handle roughing and finishing. Same wood, different cutter, different pass.
A solid log can become a sphere. So can a stack of plywood if the builder is willing to fake the log first. Thin strips of birch plywood get cut into small triangles, glued into hexagons and pentagons, and assembled into a hollow geodesic shell about 19 inches across. The shell mounts on a custom lathe. A router cuts into the surface, and where the router meets the layered plywood edges, star patterns appear. Automatic decoration from the material itself. Then, hand sanding. The finished ball looks solid, but weighs a fraction of what a real hardwood sphere would. Not every turned piece starts from one chunk of wood. A vase gets built up first. 4 wood blocks glued together with darker inserts running through the seams, so that when the finished piece spins on the lathe, the dark lines become decorative stripes running down the side. The block gets clamped, checked against a dimensioned drawing in a notebook, and mounted on the lathe. The turner starts with a roughing pass to make the block round. Then a shaping tool carves the outer curves, the shoulder up top, the belly in the middle, and the narrow foot at the base. Why the notebook? Because turning is subtractive. Wood taken off cannot go back on. The drawing is the safety net. Every diameter along the length is written down before the first cut, and calipers check the work against those numbers as the shape develops. Sanding smooths the surface while it is still spinning. Then the piece comes off, and the base gets finished by hand. 1 block, 1 drawing, 1 machine. A piece a tree could never grow into by itself. But precision is only one direction the material can go. Strip the tools down to just the hands, and something even stranger becomes possible. Now shrink the tools down until the hand doing the work matters more than the machine. A small cylindrical piece of wood, wrapped in tape and marked with pencil, gets carved by hand with fine chisels, line by line, layer by layer, until an intricate pattern emerges around its whole surface. The same material an industrial chipper reduces to gravel can also be coaxed slowly into art. And this is where the loop closes. A cross-section of a log, growth rings visible, gets measured with a ruler and mounted on a lathe. The wood spins, a shaping tool comes in against the surface, shavings peel off in curls. What starts as a raw willow slice ends up as a smooth wooden sphere, sanded first on the lathe and then finished by hand until the grain shows through as a soft glow across the whole surface. Think about the arc of this video. Earlier there was a 640 horsepower tracked mulcher grinding entire trees into ground cover, and a 200-ton crane pulling logs out of water by the bundle. Here at the finish is 1 turner, 1 piece of willow, and 1 ball rolling gently in the hand. Same material, different scales of ambition entirely. But between those two extremes sits the step that decides everything, the moment the tree stops being a tree. Long before the sphere on the lathe, someone already decided this tree would never become one. A tracked industrial chipper sits on the yard. A crane feeds whole trunks into the throat, and a 765 horsepower drum turns each one into a stream of thumb-sized chips pouring straight into a waiting trailer. The math is where this gets interesting. A trailer of raw logs and a trailer of chips weigh about the same, but chips pack tight, dry faster, and feed directly into paper mills, pellet plants, and biomass boilers without another handling step in between. Why chip on site instead of at the mill? Because moving air inside a stack of round logs is expensive per mile. Every trailer of chips replaces roughly 1.5 trailers of round wood on the same road. Fewer trips, lower fuel bills, less traffic through small towns near the ford.
Then the trunks get thicker and a normal chipper starts choking on them. The Beast-class chipper solves that by opening its throat wide enough to swallow a trunk taller than a grown adult, then dropping a rotating drum onto it that reduces a whole log to chips in seconds. The loader crane feeds it continuously. A wheel loader shoves the growing chip pile back into shape. Chips fly out the top of the chute and land 30 feet away in a mound that gets rebuilt every few minutes. Different chip sizes serve different customers. Coarser chunks go to biomass power. Finer chips go to pulp and paper. The knives inside the drum are swapped to change the cut. Same machine, different appetite. Watching a 4-ton drum eat a 20-foot log in under 10 seconds. Satisfying, unsettling, or both? Both is a fair answer.
Strip away the horsepower, and the same idea still works in a backyard. A hand-operated splitter uses a heavy counterweight dropped onto a wedge to split logs one at a time. The operator pulls a lever, the weight falls, the log opens. Same physics as the industrial chipper. About 1/400th of the output, and nothing to argue with a chainsaw carver about who eats more wood. Look at what a tree can become in the space of a single video. In one direction, an entire forest gets flattened and shipped as chips to keep power stations and paper mills running. In another, one length of the same wood becomes a container, a sphere, or a face carved into a standing trunk. As more forests get planted specifically for chipping and biomass, less wood ever reaches a craftsman's hands. Efficient, cheap, and fast wins the tonnage. Slow and skill loses the volume but keeps the trade alive. 20 years from now, what will wood be worth more for? Energy, furniture, or engineered materials? Which one do you think wins? Answer under the video. If this changed how you look at wood the next time you notice it, the subscribe button keeps more of these coming. See you in the next one.